In Buddhism, we speak of nirvana, which is the cessation of all suffering. Nirvana, first of all, it means the cessation, the extinction of all suffering. But our suffering come from our wrong perceptions, avidya, misunderstanding. And that is why the practice of meditation, the practice of looking deeply, has the purpose of removing wrong perceptions from us. If we are able to remove our wrong perceptions, we will be able to be free from the afflictions and the sufferings that always arise from wrong perceptions. You have wrong perception on yourself and on the other, and the other has wrong perception on themselves and on you, and that is the cause of fear, of violence, of hatred. That is why trying to remove wrong perceptions is the only way to peace. And that is why nirvana is, first of all, the removal of wrong perceptions. And when you remove wrong perceptions, you remove the suffering. And to meditate deeply, you find out that even ideas like being and non-being, birth and death, coming and going, are wrong ideas. If you can touch reality in depth, you realize that suchness means the ultimate reality is free from birth, from dying, from coming, from going, from being, from non-being. That is why nirvana is, first of all, the removal of notions, of ideas that serve the base of misunderstanding and suffering. If you are afraid of death, of nothingness, of non-being, because you have wrong perceptions on death and on non-being. The French scientist Lavoisier said, there is no birth, there is no death. He just observed reality around him and come to the conclusion that rien ne se crée, rien ne se perd. When you look at a cloud, you think that the cloud as a being. And later on, when the cloud becomes the rain, you don't see the cloud anymore, and you say the cloud is not there. And you describe the cloud as non-being. But if you look deeply, you can see the cloud in the rain. And that is why it's impossible for a cloud to die. A cloud can become rain, or snow, or ice, but a cloud cannot become nothing. And that is why the notion of death cannot be applied to reality. There is a transformation. There is a continuation. But you cannot say that there is death, because in your mind, to die means from something, you suddenly become nothing. From someone, you suddenly become no one. And so the notion of death cannot apply to reality, whether to a cloud or to a human being. The Buddha did not die. The Buddha only continued by his Sangha, by his Dharma, and you can touch the Buddha in the here and the now. And that is why ideas like being born, dying, coming and going, being and non-being should be removed by the practice of looking deeply. And when you can remove these notions, you are free and you have non-fear. And non-fear is the true foundation of great happiness. As far as fear is there in your heart, happiness cannot be perfect. And that is why nirvana is not something that you get in the future. Nirvana is the capacity of removing wrong notions, wrong perceptions, which is the practice of freedom. Nirvana can be translated as freedom, freedom from views. And in Buddhism, all views are wrong views. When you get in touch with reality, you no longer have views. You have wisdom. You have a direct encounter with reality. and that is no longer called views. There is the view of eternalism. Eternalism, that means you have a soul that is eternal, and after you die, that soul remain intact and go to another body and continue like that. That is eternalism. And then the other extreme is that after you die, well, there's nothing left. Nihilism. Nirvana is the extinction of these two views, nihilism and eternalism. And even in the life of a person, in the lifetime of a person, when you grow 10-year-old, you are no longer the same with you when you were 5. So you at 5 and you at 10, you are neither the same nor a different person. So the notion of same and difference should be transcended also. So if you don't see that kind of light, you don't really understand rebirth in Buddhism. You may get caught in the view of eternalism. You are not different from traditions who hold a view that there is a immortal soul. In the light of the teaching, everything is impermanent. Nothing in the 5 skandhas can remain the same, exactly the same, in 2 consecutive moments. But nothing is lost. And creation in Buddhism means manifestation. And from nothing you cannot become something. So creation, if you look deeply, it is really a continuation of manifestation. If you don't manifest in this way, and then you manifest in that way, like the cloud and the snow. So if you get that, you are no longer afraid. And that is your supernatural power. Already, if you have non-fear, and then you are quite different from other people, because they are subjected to fear of dying, fear of being nothing. But with non-fear in you, with that deep wisdom in you, you become supernatural. You are no longer immortal, but you are not. You don't need to be a god, because a god is supposed not to be a human being. So to say that the Buddha has a supernatural power, that is true also. But he does not need to be a god in order to have that. He needs only to have freedom. Freedom from wrong views and freedom from fear. It's like birth and death are like waves. And you are riding on the waves of birth and death, and you go without fear. It's a wonderful. That is supernatural power. And the Buddha did not encourage his disciples to perform miracles. He said the greatest miracle is the miracle of teaching and transforming people. And that is a miracle that he do every day. Buddhist meditation is the practice of looking deeply into the nature of reality. Because if we don't have enough concentration, mindfulness, we cannot look deeply. We can be deceived by what we see and by what we hear. It's like science. Science is also an attempt to look more deeply. You look at the sky and you see a star. You believe very strongly that the star is there. But it may be that the star has already disappeared 1,000 years of light ago. And that is why you can be deceived by what you see and what you hear. And science helps us to be more careful. And Buddhism does the same. If you look deeply, and then you can be free from wrong perceptions, from illusions. Like the illusion that life is permanent, there is a permanent soul inhabiting each living being, these kind of things. The Buddha did have teachers. He followed a number of teachers, and he practiced with communities, and he had made some progress in his path of looking deeply. But he realized finally that this kind of realization was not enough for his liberation, and that is why he had to continue by himself. And sitting at the foot of the Bodhi tree, he was able to make a breakthrough and discover the nature of interdependence, the nature of interbeing. He discovered the way of looking deeply, and he could transcend his idea of birth and death, coming and going, being and non-being, and he was completely liberated from suffering. The happiness, the salvation of Buddha was possible thanks to Mahaprajna, great understanding. And when you got great understanding, you are no longer afraid of being born, of dying. And that is why you want to share your insight and your practice with other people. When you think of the Buddha, you think of the young man who was born in Kapilavastu, who practiced many years in the forest, and who went around India to give the teaching. But that is only a portion of the Buddha. Because the moment when the Buddha began to build a Sangha, he began to transfer himself to the Sangha. And many disciples, monastic like lay, they continue the Buddha. And you have to see the Buddha in the Sangha. You have to be able to see the Buddha in the Dharma. And if you have not seen the Dharma and the Sangha, you have not seen the Buddha. And the Dharma is available in the here and the now. The Sangha is also available in the here and the now. You do not have to go to India in order to see the Buddha. If we believe that Buddha is a God, they can bestow on us the things we want, then that is not the Buddha. The Buddha is a human being who has a deep capacity of understanding and of loving. And having Mahakaruna, great compassion, Maitri, great love, Mahaprajna, great understanding, he can perform miracles. Understanding people is a miracle. And it is described that the Buddha is one who understands the world well. Lokavidu, it means understanding the world. And because he understands the world deeply, and that is why he can offer the kind of teaching that can help heal the world. And the miracle of understanding and the miracle of teaching are very important miracles that the Buddha can perform. When you give a teaching that can transform people who hear you, that is a miracle. The Buddha described it as the greatest miracles of all miracles. And there are disciples of the Buddha who were capable of doing that during the time of the Buddha. They could already continue the Buddha in the time of the Buddha. And in our time, there are those of us who can do the same. By their practice, by their teaching, they can heal people, they can help people liberate themselves from their suffering. So the miracle continues.